Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Bowling Nerd Show. I am the Bowling Nerd, Matt McNeil, and this week's special guest is the Lord of Lane Maintenance, Eric Pierson. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So now you got a special treat lined up for us this week.
Yeah, we're going to take your viewers into the lane maintenance shop here at the National Bowling Stadium in the 2013 USBC Open Championships. We're going to mainly talk about the lane machines that we use. They're Kegel lane walkers this year. We're going to discuss their theory of operation and then get a little bit into the details of sanctioned technology, invention of the late great John Davis from Kegel. So we're going to show the viewers a little bit about the equipment we use.
Awesome. Well, I know everybody at home is looking forward to the behind-the-scenes action that we're going to get to see. So let's go into the lane maintenance office and take a peek.
All right.
All right. So now we're in the cleaning compartment of the machine, right, Eric?
Correct. Kegel lane machine here, our lane walkers. They're not going to oil the lane, but the front of the machine is actually stripping off all the old oil, dirt, and putting down fresh oil. So this is the cleaning side of the machine.
Okay.
It's like basically three components to it. Four actually. The cleaner tip puts out a squirt of water out in front of the machine. Your liner duster cloth, which gets the lane surface wet and helps dust it. Below the duster is a squeegee and a vacuum system that sucks up all the old dirt and water and deposits in a recovery tank when it's all done. So this side cleans the machine, and then we'll get into the oiling side.
All right, perfect. Now let me ask you one more question. Now what's the biggest function of this cloth here? What does that do?
It's a patented part of Kegel's system. It's the only machine that puts water in front of the machine and then has the cloth help get the lane surface wet, which then in turn makes it easier to get the lane clean. It's one of the unique systems about Kegel technology.
Oh, that's really cool. All right, well, let's take a look at the oiling. All right, so now we're in the oiling compartment of the machine, right?
Right.
Okay, and what's all going on in here?
All right, so in here we have our fluids. We fill up these tanks. Cleaner, big tank, oil in the little tank. So everything's full and ready to go. When we come in, we do our checks. And then the rest of this compartment is basically sanctioned technology. It's the way we apply oil to the lane.
Okay.
We have an oil head here that travels back and forth, very similar to your inkjet printer you might have in your office.
Sure.
There's a pump in the machine that actually draws the oil out of the tank through this line and through this tip.
Okay.
So this is basically the head of your printer going back and forth, and it applies oil board by board very accurately to this black transfer brush that you see hanging in this compartment.
Yep.
That brush then is connected or touching to the buffer brush.
Okay, and that's the big blue brush.
That's the
right?
big blue brush, correct. Okay. So as that buffer is rotating and spinning, it's grabbing those streams of oil.
Yep.
And putting them on the blue brush, which then rotates and actually paints the oil on the lane. So that is your transfer system of getting oil from the tank to the lane surface. And what makes it unique is the sanctioned technology part, the part that we are able to measure the oil board by board.
That's really cool. Now, can you tell us why, you just can't, put oil on a lane? Why does it have to be buffed onto the lane?
There's different ways to oil lanes with different application techniques. This is just their particular. Other companies have their own way. This is just kind of Kegel's way of doing it. Their theory is that we're going to apply the oil very accurately to the brush and use the buffer brush as more of an applicator to actually paint the oil onto the lane.
So like it'd be comparable to like an artist painting with a finer brush to get the paint onto the canvas.
Very much so, and the ability to run the machine at different speeds allows us to taper the oil out, so we can have a lot of oil in the front of the lane and speed the machine up where there's not very much at the back end, or vice versa. We have ways to adjust the front to back taper and side to side because of the board by board accuracy of this machine.
Oh, that's really cool. What else is going on in here?
Well, if we get into the actual sanctioned technology part of it, we are actually able to measure any oil pattern and put it in this graduated cylinder to verify that we are putting out the pattern correctly. It's a little nerdy. I think it's good for your folks watching. But we basically put out what we call board by board oil.
Yep.
And we have to have a way to measure that.
Yep.
So we have a calibration in here that we can actually run 400 boards worth of oil. Okay. The pump is set at 50 microliters per board.
Okay.
So a very small amount. Almost like 2 or 3 drops out of an eyedropper.
That's considered one microliter.
One board of oil at
Okay.
50 microliters.
Okay.
So picture those drops getting multiplied 400 times.
Okay.
So if I take and do the math, 50 microliters is 0.050 times 400 boards gives me 20 milliliters. So I can physically measure and verify that my pump is putting the right amount of oil into the tube.
Now, can you actually demonstrate that function for us so the folks back home can check that out?
Right. Well, what I'm actually going to do is we would do that test first.
Okay.
Make sure that the pump is putting out the right amount of oil, and then we would go back and check the actual oil pattern.
Okay.
So instead of putting out those board by board increments onto the lane, which we're going to do in a little bit when we go out to oil for the next squad, we're actually going to simulate it into the graduated cylinder. So I go to my program testing.
Now that sound is the pump, right?
That is the pump, the pump warming up.
Okay.
And getting the oil moving throughout the system.
Okay.
All right. And I would take the oil tip out and put it in the cylinder. And it's actually, you can see here, it's the 2013 USBC team event.
Yep.
And I would just hit run test. And you may not be able to see it from up there, but we can actually see the streams of oil.
Oh, that's really cool.
Going into the tube. As you see the head go back and forth, well, the tip is in the cylinder instead of in the head.
Yep.
Putting it on the transfer brush. So, in Kegel terminology, this is called process verification.
Okay.
I'm proving that the machine is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Now there's the reverse oil. You notice the head stopped?
Yep.
Now it's putting out the reverse oil of the lane run.
So the reverse oil is when the lane machine is coming back to us, right?
Correct. Forward oil is, it's applying forward. It stops at a predetermined distance. It finishes buffing out the residual oil.
Okay.
To 41 feet.
Yep.
Continues to clean through the pin deck. Stops, comes back, drops the buffer brush where we tell it to, in this case 33 feet.
Okay.
And then puts out reverse oil where we tell it to.
Perfect.
So you have forward oil and reverse oil.
So how did it come out? How did we do?
And then we would check this, and the guys do this every time we oil, and the team event is 26.05 milliliters.
Okay.
Nobody's got a good enough eye to see 0.05.
Yep.
So what we normally do is it's a plus or minus about 2.5%.
Okay.
So we feel if it's less than even half a milliliter here, we're usually pretty good to go. But it's amazing at how accurate it really is.
Awesome. So now that came out to pretty much exactly where we want to see it, right?
Correct. And they check for it. There are adjustments in here if it's not exactly how we want it. I got to be honest, very seldomly do we ever check it and not have it be right. But it's just another way for us to prove that we're doing the right thing every day.
So that really just speaks a lot to the machine and how good of a job it does every day, and especially with the demands of the tournament. You know, with all the squads every day and all the bowlers coming through and everything that is really dependent on this machine, that it can perform 100% all the time.
Correct. I mean, the first versions of these machines go back into the mid-90s here at the tournament. We've used various machines over the years, and you just see the technologies get better and better and better. So as things improve all over the world, and technology-wise, and even in the bowling industry with the bowling balls, the oils need to change, and the way we have to apply the oil to the lane continues to change also.
All right, well, that wraps it up for this week's segment. Eric, I really want to say thank you again for being on the show.
My pleasure.
It was great to come back here in the lane maintenance shop at the National Bowling Stadium, check everything out. I know your time is very valuable, especially with the women's tournament getting into full gear here in the next couple weeks. So be sure to stay tuned. In the next coming weeks, we will be doing a special segment over at the convention center at the women's tournament, and then also, of course, more cool stuff here at the National Bowling Stadium. This is Matt McNeil for the Bowling Nerd Show saying good night, everybody.